Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to identify the one area of weakness that Arsenal encountered in their 3-2 loss against Villarreal, and it stemmed out in the wide areas, mainly with Martinelli and Saka's impact in the final third. When we look at Villarreal's shape on the board, they drop off into two banks of four, and Arsenal remained in their 4-3-3. And what Villarreal did very well here was that they ensured that, similar to Spurs, they were looking to close down the number 8s in Merino and Nwaneri, and they were blocking off the passing lanes in towards Norgaard. And if Lewis Skelly looked to invert and make it a 3-2-5, then they still had two attacking players that could close down Norgaard and Lewis Skelly, and then have their midfielders track the movement of the Arsenal 8s. Arsenal did have issues playing through that midfield zone, and the only time that they were able to bypass that Villarreal midfield four was when Nwaneri received the ball in the midfield zone and was pressed by Tyrrell, and he did a very good job of retaining possession, holding off the pressure, and then playing the ball out in towards the wider areas. But in a lot of these situations, you witnessed the two Arsenal 8s shifting out in towards the wide areas near the touchline. Merino tried to do it on the outside of Pepe, but whenever the ball was played into him, he failed to receive it. And then out in the wider areas on the right-hand side, when Nwaneri would receive the ball, you'd see Saka looking to drift into that pocket of space in behind Tyrrell and the wide Villarreal player. This was a successful outlet for Arsenal to get the ball in towards the final third, and you constantly saw the ball being shifted out in towards that area. In many ways, this was the best case scenario for Arsenal because Villarreal were keeping that midfield bank very compact and narrow. They had Nwaneri and Merino in those gaps between the midfielders and the wide players. So if Nwaneri could receive the ball without receiving pressure on his back near the touchline and then being able to carry the ball forward and towards the final third to play it to the attackers, then Arsenal would happily take that route towards the final third rather than trying to play it in towards that congested midfield area. The problem that they encountered was that their wide players in Saka and Martinelli, who are creative hubs on the touchline, and they do serve as goal threats that Arsenal will need this season, struggled to impact the game when they did receive the ball, and they received it on countless occasions. We'll start on the left-hand side where Martinelli was predominantly hugging the touchline, and he was getting help from Merino making underlapping runs, and there were occasions where Lewis Skelly did make overlapping runs as well. The problem with Arsenal in the final third out in those wider areas was simply the execution. Similar to previous games in preseason, Martinelli and Saka did a very good job of dragging the ball towards the byline on the outside of the opposing fullbacks. The problem that they encountered was that when they got in towards those areas near the byline, they did a very poor job of generating high quality chances. Martinelli specifically down that left-hand side in the early stages witnessed a 3v2 overload at the back post with gyokeres, Nwaneri, and Saka breaking towards that zone and simply failed to attempt to play the ball in towards that area. In many cases, this wasn't simply down to Foyth shutting down Martinelli because he was able to run at several Villarreal players down that right-hand side, but in nearly every scenario that he did get a chance to do that, he failed. He would go 1v1 towards the byline and simply play poor crosses in towards the penalty area. He'd receive the ball on the touchline and simply be denied a second touch because a Villarreal defender would step in to win possession. There were times where he would shrug off the overlapping run. He would have somewhat of an overload at the back post, retain possession despite pressure being played, and then get the ball back, and even with that 3v2 overload at the back post, simply play a poor pass in towards Saka in particular, and that was an occasion that happened in the first half. But in many of these scenarios where Martinelli was simply 1v1 down that left touchline, he was playing poor passes in towards his teammates that were obviously unsuccessful, playing poor crosses towards the back post that none of his teammates could get to, was simply losing 1v1s against any defender that he was up against, and he was providing no impact in that final third. And ultimately, the best chance that Arsenal created down that left side in the opening half stemmed with Martinelli in a 1v1. He pulled away a defender. He was able to play in Merino on the underlap, and from there Merino did a better job of playing the ball towards that overload, and it was simply poor execution from Saka in the 6-yard area that denied Arsenal an opening goal. On the other hand, when we look to the right hand side, Saka was struggling to have an impact when he shifted into more narrow positions when he had White or Nwaneri shifting towards the touchline, and when he looked to receive the ball in those zones with his back to goal, Villarreal did a very good job of stepping in towards challenges to ensure that he couldn't receive possession and ultimately broke the other way. There were also times near the touchline where he looked to run at goal aimlessly and he was dispossessed, or similar to Martinelli when he looked to receive the ball towards the touchlines. The fullbacks did a very good job of stepping in to ensure that he couldn't get the ball on his first or second touch. Now, once again, similar to Martinelli, when he received the ball near the touchline and was 1v1 against the opposing fullback, he did a very good job of bringing the ball towards the outside on the byline, but when he played balls in towards those areas, they were simply poor and they didn't generate high quality chances as explained earlier. Nevertheless, while it was clear that Saka experienced similar issues to Martinelli, and this has been a reoccurring theme in previous preseason games for Arsenal this season, there were moments of optimism that we can look back towards. There was one in a 2v2 situation where he had White making the overlapping run, and he has the overload at the back post, but rather than picking out Norgaard at the back post, he tried to play the ball in towards Gyokeres, who couldn't connect with his delivery, and when the ball fell to Norgaard, he was unable to execute in that position by seeing the ball late. And then on one of the rare occasions where him and Nwaneri connected in the final third, saw Nwaneri carrying the ball towards the penalty area, Saka making a run in behind the Villarreal defense, and he did a very good job of cutting back on towards his left foot, but he fired a tame effort at the keeper. The best chance that he created in this game stemmed from an overlapping run where he served as a creator by playing the ball into White on the overlap, and from here where White may have been looking to locate Merino making a late run towards the 6-yard area, his delivery flew over the midfielder and fell towards Martinelli, who wasted a golden opportunity ahead of the 6-yard box. So as you can see, this was another preseason display where Arsenal's attack lacked connectivity under Mikel Arteta, and it was largely down to Martinelli and Saka's inability to provide a consistent threat in the final third when the opportunity presented itself.